Okay. Right, let's get started then. Our last session of the year, what is ecosystems building? My name is Yasmin. I will be your host and facilitator today. And I'm part of the Bristol Hub, but I am not alone. This is Bristol, and we have our wonderful core team, James and Hannah, who are here as well. We've been uh, amazing team to work with, and yeah, we've been, let's say, steering the Bristol hub for the past year. And I think, oopsie, let me just go back, present. Okay. So we've been kind of steering the Bristol hub for the past year, and we've also collected along the way this wonderful group of people that we call the Partners and Associates Group, the P&A, who are, let's say, some type of a governance team for us, a group that helps us with activities and helps us with ideas for the hub and projects and so forth. So it's been very good and very grateful to having these people with us to support the mission of the Bristol Hub. And just for you to get to know a bit more about who we are and what we've been doing, the people who are involved in this project. And yeah, in case you don't know, the SI network is, let's say, is supported by this network of hubs all over the world. And we are just one of these other hubs that are active at the moment. And as you can see here, there's loads of people participating in creating the SI network hubs and experience overall. So make sure to check all of them as well, because each one of us, the hubs, have different activities going on. So yeah, it's always good to explore what other people are doing as well. But yeah, we are here, and amongst all these other great people, they're doing great stuff across the globe. And yeah, that's the topic for today. What is ecosystems building? And this is a discussion, so I'm gonna have some slides here and there, but please share this, especially this one. We've been doing a couple of sessions before, but especially this one is a lot more of the practice and of the building, of the creation. So it would be great if you can share with us projects that you've been involved with and examples that you've been looking around and you found out maybe they're doing some interesting work or whatever. It would be great to hear your contribution as well. Okay, and this is a discussion, so no rights and wrongs. We're here to co-create and share knowledge. Okay. So yeah, a bit of the pre-session, the agenda, just a bit of an introduction to ecosystems and ecosystems building. Then we go a bit deeper into what ecosystems building is, and then we're going to talk about some aspects of it. And please share more if you have any other insights that you'd like to share with us, right? So before we start, just to remind you that this session is being recorded and is going to be available afterwards on our YouTube channel, that I'm going to put the link afterwards in the chat. And saying that, the chat function is available, so if you have any comments, questions, please put on the chat. But you can also unmute yourselves if you want to address anything. Put your hands up and you can unmute yourselves. But if you're not speaking, I'll just ask you to mute so we can have a good audio experience for everyone. But please don't hesitate to unmute yourselves if you want to speak and share anything. All right, that's the housekeeping. And let's start with an introduction and context to this session. So as I was preparing for it, every time I think about the word ecosystem, it always comes to me those graphics from the biology classes that I had in school, right? Those ones that you see all these trees and animals and the weather, everything kind of feeding into each other and so forth. So this is the first image that I have of an ecosystem. And I think we can recap some of the ideas behind what that actually means, and then apply that in the context of systems change and innovation and social work and so forth. So let's go back to school for a moment so we can recap a bit of this concept of ecosystem, and then we can move on and apply those to other areas, and your contribution will be amazing right here. So just a couple of definitions for us to get aligned about what this means, and I wanted to highlight here some of these words. So one of the definitions could be all the plants, animals, and people living in an area considered together with their environment as a system of relationships. So this is quite important, the relationships, right? And all the living things in an area and the way they affect each other and the environment. So what does it really mean? This, I highlighted here, relationships, one affects the other and the environment and so forth. So as a very simple illustration of that, we can think about a butterfly, for example, in nature, and then the butterfly that pollinates, for example, the flowers on a tree, and they create some type of a synergetic relationship here. They kind of support each other. But then eventually, as time goes on, the butterfly dies, and the decomposers that are on the soil are going to create, again, use the butterfly to then increase the soil potential and put some nutrients in the soil and so forth. And that's going to give rise to new plants and new, popping up some seeds and new plants and new trees and so forth. And again, as time goes on, that's going to attract other animals that are going to, for example, eat the bushes, eat the plants. And maybe because of the attraction of these animals, then you can see some conflicts may arise between different species and so forth. And all of these connections and all of these interrelationships together are going to influence, as in a grand kind of scale, the physical environment, the physical context, and vice versa, right? As we think about evolution per se. So we can see how all of these components, all of these parts are interrelated. They're not just doing their own bits of this ecosystem, right? They are supporting the existence and the development of all the other components that are part of this ecosystem. And this is in a constant loop altogether. So we can see some snapshots like that, right? But we can also see the picture overall, the whole decomposes, all of these specific relationships, these specific behaviors that we see here and there. So when we think about the ecosystem, and as we talked about systems generally before in the previous sessions, it's really about the idea of zooming in and zooming out, making this effort of thinking about the relationship in a specific context, and then expanding to a greater context and so forth. So doing this exercise is very important, and this is one of the beauties of the ecosystem, right? The diversity of elements that we have here that are locally establishing these relationships, but also contributing to the bigger picture. So this is some of the concepts that I wanted to kind of highlight here when we talk about ecosystem. But then we focus a lot on this natural environment, right? So how can we use these concepts and these ideas that we normally learn, they are out there, right, outside in the natural environment, and apply those in the world of work, in the projects that we're involved in, or in the organizations that we are part of. And this idea of building ecosystems is quite interesting. So how can we get some of these ideas and start building something that is around us, that we are part of? So those are some of the questions that we could explore today. But before I continue, any first thoughts that you might have right now, any ideas or any similarities that you've seen in projects that you've been participating in around this idea of zooming in and zooming out, and this ecosystem of different agents, different components here, and how each one of them is responsible for one part of the system, but they're all actually working together. All right, any?
I would say, Yasmin, not as I can think of a specific project, but lots of projects which obviously I've run in the past. You sort of do this almost stakeholder mapping exercise at the start, and I think that's kind of similar to understanding the ecosystem or the actors within an environment that you're going to be affecting, and you can sort of look at the level of impact or priority that those certain stakeholders and actors might have on your project, and then how do you manage the engagement and interaction with them. So I think that's that's very similar sort of process to looking at an ecosystem there.
Awesome, thanks, James. Yeah, we've in a session prior we talked about systems mapping, right? So one of the benefits of mapping is looking at the whole, right? Not just paying attention to what we are engaging in, but then having that bigger picture of the system. And as you're saying, stakeholder mapping is great to understand how actions of stakeholders that may not be related to us directly are influencing the work that we do overall. So this great example. Thank you, James. Hannah.
James and Yasmin might laugh at me for saying this, but because I say it all the time, these kinds of images and the correlation between systems thinking and the natural world always makes me think about creating the conditions of possibility, and it's kind of what I always think the function is of systems leadership, is being able to understand the different components that are at play, and thinking about what we want to achieve, and then playing a role to adjust the environment slightly so that the different players can work better together or reduce conflict. And so this just brought that to mind, is the idea of creating the conditions of possibility for innovation and creativity.
Awesome. Yeah, supporting the existence of this diversity of behaviors and relationships, right? Because it can be very difficult in this analogy for us, as let's say we are butterflies in a specific organization, and we think that this relationship is the only one that we know and is the only one that is valid, to then think about the importance of this decomposer and this new branches, new I don't know, plants kind of emerging. And this work here is as important for the overall work as it is this one. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist and the whole thing would collapse. So validating the different experiences, the different behaviors, the different ways of relating with each other is extremely important. But as Juliana was saying in the beginning, difficult, not easy. It's easier said than done, right? And understanding diversity can be quite tricky, and working with it can be quite tricky, right? But yeah, lots more to share. Thank you, Hannah.
On that point, I definitely think about if you're able to maintain some kind of perspective, some kind of systemic view, and play the roles that fills the gaps. So acknowledging that seedlings are important in the system, but that might be undermined by the presenting pressures in the system, and playing a role to protect that aspect of it. Or your role at another point might be around synergy or around protecting established incumbents. But for me, it's always, there's something about the nimbleness of a role of being in systems innovation and leadership to be able to be responsive to where the gap is in the system. Sorry.
Awesome. Tracy.
Yes, hi, I'm Tracy I'm based in Cape Town, and I see there's a hub in Cape Town. I didn't know about that. It's interesting. So yes, so we run a non-profit company where we're supporting lots of people who are unemployed. So we have to create this ecosystem for change, a lot of that. And it's about creating the safe space where people can heal. And then when you start to heal and your anxiety starts to lower, then your volition starts to rise. Because as you were saying, zooming out is quite hard if you're stuck in survival mode. You can't see that bigger picture. So we've gone through quite a learning journey over the last couple of years, and we've now created a whole program called the A to B methodology. And that's incredible. It's very much around self-reflection, and then you can take the next steps. So when we understand ourselves, you know, because we're all hardwired somewhere in our brains. So when we understand that, we can do lots of self-reflecting, and we're seeing it very impactful now. See that big change happening. So yes, we've got to zoom in and zoom out.
Amazing. Yeah. It's something that we normally talk about as well in the hub, the idea of first acknowledging a given situation or being aware of the given situation to then being able to act in a better position, because sometimes we want to act before we are aware of what's going on, and that creates the same loop. We just get stuck in the same loop of doing the same thing over and over, right? And we don't open up opportunities for the new and for, as Hannah was saying, innovation and creativity. So yeah, that's very important, the self-reflection or the self-awareness to then be able to contribute in a different position, right? And which is sometimes undermined because we need to put the results out there. We need to focus on the deadline and so forth. And then where's the self-reflection, right? It goes down the drain. So that's super important. Thank you. James.
Yeah, that sounds great, Tracy. I'd like to hear more about what you guys are doing. It's made me think as well. There's a thing about that like intention as well. I think is a good point to raise. It's about like there's a self-reflection, there's a understanding of your position and role within an ecosystem, and then there's a kind of a gathering of intention about what kind of change you might want to affect or you should affect, or how that might impact other things. So I think there is that deep kind of reflection when we're looking at ecosystems about, you know, what impact we might have on unintended consequences and our roles and the roles of others and things like that. So yeah, it gets pretty complicated quite quickly.
Yeah, awesome. And can you imagine a butterfly trying to do the job of a lion? Like, it would be a complete disaster, right? It wouldn't go very far. So yeah, roles and positions within the ecosystem are very important as well. So so many things that we can talk about. Juliana.
Yeah, I'm loving the discussion. And I'll bring something that almost 20 years of working on mental health promotion. We put here on this picture, a human being, you have the physical context, but you start having the emotional context. And the overall climate, will just be different from each human being. So diversity also is a challenge, and what Tracy says is fantastic, because we work we're based on Canada chapter that is health promotion, and health promotion is promote first a safe space. So this environment will be safe if every being is on their task and being part of the synergy that we all have. So I think all the broken space or the broken relationship, if you don't have confidence or if you don't respect others, so self-reflection and is this first step of health promotion and mental health promotion, and this is a journey. It's something that's not happened like this. So in our case, building this ecosystem, mental health in Brazil, we map all the stakeholders and government policies, and the literacy on this is very important, because we have this stigma and we have discrimination, and what you said, the butterfly of the bear, if you want discriminate the role, no, your job is less than mine. Everything started being in conflict. So I think that's why I'm also engaging now in the inner development goals, because I think everything started in ourselves. The posture I have with the environment, or with the fellow, or someone is engaged in my organization, or my personal or my professional environment. I think this is all about human being respecting and having this mindset that is sustainability. So the system, it's a challenge to really this is a contribution that it just goes my hand. Thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you, Juliana. When we put our subjectivity and our experience in the context here, right? There's a whole new world to explore, and different challenges that emerge as we interact with each other and interact with animals and the plants and the environment and so forth. So it gets a lot more complicated as we go into the realm of the subjectivity and our experiences, definitely. And mental health, in the mental health arena, that's a very important topic to be discussing. So the emotional context that you said, I really like that. It's another one to put in the in the image here somewhere. So I think as everything that you're all saying, thank you, Juliana, and everything that you're all saying kind of builds on this second part that I wanted to share with you, that essentially is how we start. Why do we need this framework of building ecosystems, and how can we start thinking about focusing on doing that, right? And I found this really interesting report. All the resources that I've used are in the end of this presentation, so you can have it all afterwards, okay? But this report is very interesting, because it kind of shares a bit of the context to why we're talking about building ecosystems at the moment, and then some frameworks and so forth. But then it starts with this idea that same old thinking leads to same old results. That if, as we were talking a bit in the beginning, right, if we continue with the same mindset, a very linear, predictable mindset, then all the actions that follow are going to be related to this pattern of thinking, right? And this pattern of thinking that is very reductionistic only and too linear resulted in a lot of the situations, a lot of the troubles that we're in right now worldwide. So the systems change that we need is also a systems change of thinking, of mindset, of ways of being aware of the situations, right? As we were talking about before. So we first need that step of acknowledging that the pattern of the mindset that we have is very limited. So we need other ways of thinking about the problems that we are in right now, which are more systemic, are more complex, right? And for that, that's what they say, to take on systemic problems, we need systemic solutions or systemic thoughts, right? Systemic ways of thinking. And this is part of the reason why we are in the room today, is because we acknowledge that there are a lot of problems and they are not going to be addressed with the similar pattern of thinking that we've been using for the past like 100 to 100 years. So the main question in this report is, how do we collaborate to create an ecosystem that supports innovation for systems change? Because in this mindset as well is the idea that no one organization has the solution for the problems, right? Because they are complex. No one has the answer for the problem. So we need this diversity of thinking. We need this diversity of relationships to be able to see the grand scheme of what's going on and then act locally in our endeavors, but with this whole picture in mind. So that's why this idea of innovation is so important, and the idea of ecosystem is so important. Because in that way, as we're talking about, we can thinking about mapping stakeholders and not just having one organization that is going to deliver the project in 24 months and everything's going to be great. We can think about innovation and creativity as, let's say, fundamentals to then create projects and ideas and brainstorming what could be, and then implementing and coming back and reframing our idea and putting back again and creating this loop, right? So there's a lot that we can get from this ecosystem thinking, ecosystem mindset. And this is a lot more of the hands-on part of what we've been thinking about in this 5 sessions, right, so far. So this report is very, very interesting. And to summarize some of the ideas here, if we have the problem in this old way of thinking, each one of us has a solution, and we were trying to implement that in the problem itself. But then in the idea of ecosystem, each one of us has an idea, but we create the connections between these ideas to then create the emergence of something that is bigger than just the ideas themselves alone. So this is what we are starting to realize as organizations and as societies and as professionals, right? That we don't have the right answer because the problems are from a different nature than what we've been dealing with until now. And the innovation ecosystem is what we are kind of following or going towards. So just another quote from that report that I really, really enjoyed. An ecosystem framework creates conceptual common grounds, allowing for us to listen to existing systems, where we've been talking about the awareness and paying attention to what's going on rather than just giving answers, right? Discover their properties, because they are not the same. They're generally complex patterns and complex problems. They are not the same as what we've been dealing with in the past. And then understanding how to align emergent properties with our values. So it's not that I'm going to create one, I'm going to do something and that's going to have one specific outcome, right? The outcomes are emergent, the responses are emergent, and we may not predict, or we may not have control of what's going on, but then it's about dealing with them within the values that we have in the first place. And then work together to transform the current systems into those that nurture and sustain innovation for transformational systems change. Thought this quote was very comprehensive, and there's a lot about that we can kind of dissect and think about separately, and then put everything together and think about that as a way of thinking more than just a way of doing the work that we have to do, right? So I got here one example of what an ecosystem building kind of project could look like. And this is a super project created by the Amsterdam City Council. They wanted to tackle urban childhood obesity. And as it says here, one of the strategies that they used is to look at overweight and obesity as a wicked, complex problem. So it's not just a problem within the health industry, right? This is not what is going to support a healthier version of this problem. It's really complex. It needs, as they say here, it takes a village to raise a child, right? It needs different approaches and different perspectives to contribute to this challenge. It's not just a health problem. Maybe it is a infrastructure problem. Maybe it is a mental health problem. Maybe it is I don't know, something else. So I wanted to highlight here all the different stakeholders that they put together to support the development of this project. So you have here, well, families, and you have neighborhoods, and you have nurses and preschool parents, and you have community initiatives, and you have so many other stakeholders that are involved to tackling this challenge that in a very linear way of thinking could just be a health problem and that's it, right? Healthcare problem. So this is just one of the examples of how we can see that in practice rather than just, oh, this is just theory and no one else is doing that. But yeah, as you were talking about before, you've been involved in several different projects that are doing that as well. And this is great. So I think one question that I have is the challenges that you faced while trying to bring this mindset or this way of thinking of ecosystems, and then maybe people shutting it down or people not understanding what you're talking about and maybe just thinking about something else and trying to diverge the questions or the project to a place where it's a lot more deadline-y based and kind of, yeah, solution straight away and a mindset. Would you like to share any of those?
Can we go to the faces view whilst we chat?
Oh, yeah, sure. Any?
I have a reflection on it,
Sure.
just from working across a range of programs over the years and kind of seeing what the conditions of possibility for success are and the barriers that cause blockages. And I think one of the big things I follow is going where the energy is and not like banging at closed doors. So I can imagine like a program looking at health like that and thinking these are the people that we need around the table to absolutely make this work. And actually I've learned to think who in the system cares about this and will work with us rather than we absolutely need these people, because my learning is that you can waste a lot of time trying to get the right people around the table and it's just not for them, or they're not a systemic thinker, or they're annoyed by you because you're stepping on, you know, a million things that could be contributing to how they're feeling. And actually the way these kinds of programs build momentum is always just going where the energy is. And also complex work and system change is really hard. So like fighting against people is just too much hard work, and it can really boil away your own enthusiasm and affect your own kind of sense of self and make you question yourself. Whereas working with people who are alongside you and advocates, that doesn't mean that you completely ignore the people who aren't completely on board. Sometimes they can be the big, once they come around to thinking, they can be the big advocates, but I think it's going where the energy is.
Yeah, definitely. The problem in itself is complicated enough, right? You don't need to complicate it more. Bringing people together, they're not going to be very recipients to the idea. So yeah, there's that for sure. Any other challenges, Tracy?
I can share if you like.
Yeah.
So we started this organization in 2010 when we realized we've got a massive unemployment problem in South Africa. We know we have generational trauma. We know what we've been through. And we wanted to create opportunities for people to start their own businesses. So in this environment, in my nature, it was basically just to rescue everybody. So I was just doing that. And I realized over time I was creating dependency in this ecosystem. So it was really interesting to see that we can do that. We can end up rescuing everything, and then we're disempowering everybody, because you're basically saying to people, I can, you can't. And that really had to be a big self-reflection that happened to us in like 2012, when we realized we had to do, as I mentioned, that self-reflection. And this woman, Vivian Schultz, has helped us create this environment over time. And it's very impactful. Nothing's perfect, you know, there's always time, always that. But I mean, I definitely would love to share the methodology with you. I can share it by email, whatever, if you want to learn more about it. But it really has been very, very good to help us, because everybody's involved. It's not just us learning the system. We can now spread it across all of our different branches and everybody in the organization.
Yeah,
She
that's
told me
so good.
That's what she told me.
Yeah. No, that's very, very good, Tracy. Thank you. That's a difficult one, right? Because when we do this ecosystem building, we need to allow for other people to do their bits and to maybe fail and to learn and to create their own context to then contribute better to the project overall. And sometimes when we try to bring everyone together, like everyone just come, then when we don't know what to do, then people get disappointed of like, oh, I thought you were going to lead the way all the way, but no, right? So it's important to let people do their part as well, and not just trying to gather everything that we can. And like, what do you have any ideas to why sometimes we do that, or any thoughts? Why do we sometimes do that? Yes, James.
Yeah, I thought it was not quite sure it's exactly the same, but it's something about yeah, I like what Tracy's saying about dependency, and there's something about control and measuring things, and you know, thinking back to that statement around like if you pursue things with the same mindset, you'll get the same result. And that's sort of traditionally how many projects are run, which are trying to have positive effects in society, but will create things like dependency, because the organization delivering something needs to justify and validate that it's doing something which it can have a measure the impact of, like, oh, we've supported so many people, or so many people have come into our program, or you know, whatever that might be. And so there's kind of a trade-off between, you can prove sometimes that, you know, you're having some kind of impact, but actually fundamentally at kind of more of an ecosystem, a systemic perspective, you're not really having the long-term benefit that you might want. And a lot of that is things to do with control as well. So with the ecosystem kind of mindset, it's about relinquishing a lot of control, or understanding that you're working within complexity and you can only have certain amounts of influence or control over certain things, and you can't sort of define a particular scope and then work only within that. You kind of need to one of Hannah's good sayings is kind of like start anywhere, go everywhere, I think is what you usually say, Hannah. So it's like, you know, kind of following the path of sometimes like least resistance, but also being able to be adaptable and kind of work with emergent qualities of whatever sort of system you're working with. So so yeah, I just wanted to say those few things really.
Perfect. Yeah, I say power structures and the hierarchies that sometimes we carry within us without noticing. And yeah, just trying to, I say, change your mindset about that as well can be quite difficult. So again, going back to the idea of awareness, how can we start with ourselves and shift the mindset about the control and the power dynamics within us, so then the work that we do is, let's say, not necessarily just an extension, but is an expression of what we truly value and what we truly understand the better pathway to be. So yeah, what I got from what you're saying, James, is really starting to break these mindsets and these patterns of thinking within us to then create the conditions for other people to be supported by that, right? To be supported by their mindset.
I think it was something to do with I like the terminology of systems gardening. I'm quite a keen gardener as well, so I quite like that idea. And there's also like a stewardship thing. And I was thinking about your model of you know, not everyone working independently on different solutions, but kind of looking at the system holistically and as a group of people. And I think in terms of like the activity of ecosystem building, there's something about if you can gather a like-minded group of people who have a shared kind of I don't know, mindset around ecosystem building and stewardship and looking holistically, then I think it's like that is how you can do some ecosystem building. It's sort of gathering a group of people who feel some sense of stewardship for that ecosystem and are working collectively to, as again Hannah said, kind of like enable these emergent qualities of opportunities and possibilities to happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I can just share the last bit of the presentation with you, because it touches on what you're saying, James, some aspects of ecosystem building or what we could pay attention to, right, when trying to do some of this work. So this, alongside being very important topics, that can be a good LinkedIn post as well. So just saying that if you screenshot, you can also tag us. And no, I'm joking. But basically, this was inspired by this blog that I read from Louise Armstrong, and she puts like loads of different aspects, and these are just some of those that I got from the blog, and I thought it was extremely interesting to think about. And what you're saying, James, I think is related more to this community is not just a group of people together, right? Community involves values and involves the relationships and involves how we think about what we're doing, the mission that we're on, and so forth. There's a lot more, let's say, going back to Juliana's point about the emotional context, right? Not just the how many people are there, but who are the people that are there, and going back to the idea of roles as well and so forth. So very important to establish a community, right, to then evolve the project to whatever horizons. Then I really like this one of asking and living the questions. I was reading Daniel Wall's book, and he talks about that all the time, about asking questions and leaving them as you progress in the work, because then you're going to embody those principles, you're going to embody the philosophies and the foundations of these questions, to then the work gets a lot more aligned with how we think and how we behave. So living the questions is extremely important. Topic here of spaces and rhythms for learning together. Really like that. We don't learn in the same pace, we don't learn in the same way, but we all, as you're saying, James, we all need to adapt, because the context that we're in is very emergent and it's very complex, and things are happening all the time. So we need to adapt, and we need to learn constantly. But then we need to create the rhythms for that. We need to create the spaces for that. And these influences how much contact we have with the questions, with the problems, with what is being discussed and so forth. And that creates a different dynamic within this ecosystem. So that's a very important point as well. Foundational infrastructure, right, is important. Where are we going to meet? What is the budget that we have? What is the project that we're involved in, and so forth. So those are continue to be important considerations. The feedback loops, as we were talking before, the person who has the idea that is going to implement, are the feedback from that implementation going to the core team, and then what is the core team doing to support the learning of another space or so forth. So all these feedback loops, coming back ideas that exist within a community, within an ecosystem, that are important to considerate, and sometimes you kind of lose track of them, right? We're doing a bit of this work in the Bristol Hub when we're talking about the information, let's say, network of where the information is going and how are we getting this information and so forth. So feedback is very important. And then, as we were talking about today a lot as well, external and internal sense making. Let's say, in other words, the awareness of ourselves, the awareness of the environment, and going back to the feedback loop idea, how are these two communicating? How our internal work is communicating with the work that we do externally, and vice versa. So some of the I just thought it was extremely insightful, these points. And you've said that some of these are very present in your work, right? So any other aspects that you'd like to highlight here, or aspects that you maybe never thought about that much, or one that you always go back to? Anyone's here? Have a moment to reflect. It's a lot. Hannah.
So it's hard to pick because they're all really relevant, and I'm sure all of the other ones that Louise Armstrong mapped out are. But I'm just reflecting on the spaces and rhythms for learning together. So in the systems that I work in, there's so much pressure, so much reactive pressure, that it really drives behaviours that aren't conducive with systems thinking, systems working. And so, and there's been, because those systems, they become cultured into reactive working. So when you create space, people almost get cross with you because they're like, I'm too busy for this. But there's something about a commitment to holding to creating that space and then holding the line and just waiting to see what lands when you start doing it. So being somehow maintaining the momentum of people's interest whilst you hold that space, because people can be very resistant to that, even though everyone in the room can want change, they want the future. It's really difficult when they are constantly in a reactive environment to hold that space and to bring like a reflective self into that space. So recognizing the challenge of that and the importance of holding space to get through that storming phase. It can take years.
Nice. Yeah. It's not just about creating them, but the sustainability of these spaces and who is participating and how they're participating and so forth. So it's a thought, right? First, do we have the spaces for reflection? Do we have the spaces for learning? But then the second point is who is actually participating, how they are participating, and is it really the best approach? Can we do something else? And maybe these people should be or could be sharing what they would like to do rather than us kind of creating some spaces that don't work for the context and so forth. So yeah, it is a lot. But yeah, that's a very important consideration. Thank you. Okay, so since we are on the clock, I will just start closing off the session. But as you can see, there's a lot more that we can talk about in here. And this was like a storm of information in one session. But 2025, we have a lot more of these sessions that are going to happen. So let me go back to the presentation very quickly so I can finish it off. So just quick summary. What is ecosystem? We covered today. The importance of building ecosystems to support systems change, and then some aspects involved in the ecosystems building process. Then the resources, I'll leave this on the Bristol Hub space. And some questions for you. Normally I put loads of questions, but today I just wanted to give a very one for you to take to 2025. How can we support and or participate in the development of more ecosystems where we live in 2025? Maybe something to come back in January and discuss as well. Who knows? Yeah, so coming up next, we have a Christmas dinner tomorrow. Whoever is in Bristol, you can come and join us. And in January, we have an interview about James Bolton book, Complexity, Making Sense and Making Waves. Then in March, we have a talk with Diana Finch, part of our P&A group, on her book, Value Beyond Money, on alternative economics and so forth. It's going to be awesome as well. And we have a book club starting on January. So all the links are on the Bristol Hub space. And that's it, everyone. This is the QR code for the Bristol Hub. And yeah, we have loads of things happening there. But generally, thank you very much for joining us today. And yeah, we'll see each other very soon. And happy holidays, happy New Year. And yeah, thank you.
That was great.
Have a
Stay
healthy
well.
pause.
Thank you.
For
Yes,
new energy
healthy
in
pause.
2025. Pause.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Get in contact. Bye.